You know, in the world of sports, you get stories about winning and losing. But then, every once in a while, you get a story that's about so much more than just the game. That's what we're talking about today. It's this incredible, heartbreaking, and ultimately triumphant journey of the Zambian national football team.
And that really is the question at the heart of it all, isn't it? Because this story, it's not just about football. It's about resilience, it's about memory, and maybe, just maybe, it's about destiny.
So, to really get this story, we've got to start at the beginning. Let's meet the team at the center of everything.
Okay, so they're known as Chipolopolo. Now, what does that mean? It translates to the copper bullets. And that name is so powerful. It ties the team right into Zambia's identity. I mean, they're a huge copper producer, and it also connects to this new feeling of hope in the country at the time.
And this just gives you a quick snapshot of the team's legacy, right? You've got absolute legends like Godfrey Chitalu, their all-time top scorer, and Kennedy Mwini, the guy with the most caps. I mean, these are the giants whose legacy the modern team is built on.
And here they are. This is the look. That iconic orange home kit and the green away jersey. I mean, if you're a football fan anywhere in Africa, you know exactly who this is.
All right, let's set the scene. We're heading back to the early 1990s. This was a time of just huge optimism for football in Zambia.
People were talking about a real golden generation of players. I mean, these guys were unbelievably talented, super ambitious, and they had one massive goal in their sights: qualifying for the 1994 World Cup. This wasn't just another good team. They were literally a nation's dream on 2 feet.
But that dream, that flight towards history, was about to be stopped, just cut short in the most horrific way you can possibly imagine.
April 27, 1993. That date it's burned into the memory of every single Zambian. The team was on a flight to Senegal for a huge World Cup qualifier. They never made it.
So what happened? It was just this cascade of catastrophic failures. There were already signs of engine trouble, but they kept going. After refueling in Gabon, one of the engines just failed. Then, in that moment of crisis, the pilot makes a terrible mistake and shuts down the other engine, the only one that was still working. And just like that, the plane had no power. It just fell right into the sea.
18 players. Just think about that. The very heart of their golden generation. An entire team of talent. Gone. In an instant. In total, all 30 people on board, the players, the coaches, the crew, everyone, they were all lost. The World Cup dream wasn't just delayed, it was shattered. The entire nation was just plunged into mourning.
So this brings us to an almost impossible question, right? How does an entire nation even start to recover from something like that? I mean, how do you rebuild from absolute zero?
Well, the beginning was brutal. They had to scramble to put a new team together, and just a year later they get crushed 9-0 by Belgium. A really painful reminder of how far they had to go. But then, and this is incredible, just 2 years after that, this same rebuild team shows this unbelievable spirit and finishes third at the Africa Cup of Nations. It was the first sign of that resilience that would become their trademark.
So began this long, hard road back. This was no overnight success story. We're talking about almost 2 decades of rebuilding, celebrating small victories, and all the while keeping the memory of that lost team alive. That third-place finish in '96 was like a beacon of hope. By 2010, they were knocking on the door again, real contenders. And then came 2012.
And this is where the story gets, well, it's almost unbelievable. It's the climax of this whole journey, a moment that honestly feels like it was written in the stars.
Get this, the 2012 Africa Cup of Nations final was held in Libreville, Gabon. They were playing for the biggest trophy in African football, literally just off the coast from where the plane went down 19 years earlier. I mean, you couldn't make this stuff up. The script is just perfect.
And the matchup was a classic David versus Goliath. You had Zambia playing for history, for memory, for their very first title. And who were they up against? The Ivory Coast. A team stacked with superstars, their own golden generation, and they were the heavy, heavy favorites to win the whole thing.
For 90 long, grueling minutes, the Copper Bullets just would not back down. They fought for everything, held their own against the powerhouse favorites. The whistle blows, still 0-0. So we go to extra time, 30 more minutes, and still nothing. The tension is just unbearable. It's all coming down to the lottery of a penalty shootout.
And after the most nerve-shredding shootout you can imagine, Zambia did it. They won.
The underdogs, playing right there in the shadow of their greatest tragedy, achieved their absolute greatest triumph. They were the champions of Africa.
Wow, that victory just cemented this incredible legacy. So, that brings us to today. Who's the team carrying that torch forward now?
Well, the journey absolutely continues. You've got new faces, new leadership, like former coach Aljosha Asanovic, who was there in 2022. But that same spirit, it's still there. It connects every single generation of this team.
Today, that legacy is carried by guys like the captain, Fashion Sakala, and Pat Sindaka, who you'll see in the Premier League. And get this, the veteran defender Stopla Sunzu, the guy who scored the winning penalty back in that 2012 final, he's still part of the squad. It just shows you the talent and that passion of the Chipolopolo is alive and well.
You know, the story of Chipolopolo really makes you think about this question, doesn't it? Their win in 2012, it was never just about a trophy. It was about honoring a memory. It was about helping to heal a nation. And it was about proving that sometimes, out of the deepest, darkest tragedy, the most incredible triumph can rise.